Seneca's greetings to his 58th birthday cantor's house, friend Lucilius, says our language is so impoverished that I have not completely comprehended till today we occur to be discussing Plato, and thousands of topics were discussed, which, albeit lacking names, had none, but there were some others that formerly owned but now no longer possess words, since we were too kind about their utility. But who can appreciate being kind? While living in poverty, there is in Greek Easters caused an insect chill, which distributes all of the livestock and drives them wild. Throughout the former pastures, it was referred to in our language as silas, as you might accept Virgil's authority, eke, our burner, close to Solaris groves, oak trees in various colours of green insects known as silas, and flits by thee in Greek. The word is rendered as greet us with a harsh and stern sound that drives mad and buzzes terrified herds all around the woods, which leads me to believe that the word has no longer useful and not intended to retain you. After too much waiting, there were several current uncompounded terms such as genus pharaoh, to state, as it will be demonstrated once more by Virgil, great heroes from different countries had come to a mutually agreeable resolution with the sword. In order to resolve these issues, we now express the simple term de junior has evolved into the ancients used to think that ear was outmoded, so in conditional ear sero instead of clauses, you don't have to believe me, but you can go back to Virgil the other way. Soldiers will battle beside me. Where I'll place my bid, I'm not trying to demonstrate this. Several instances of how much time I have squandered on language study. I just want you to comprehend the quantity of words that were prevalent in Aeneas's writings and an ancient chaos have developed mould, even though in the instance of Virgil, whose every day some of his pieces are examined, words have been taken from us by you, will remark, I guess what's the purpose and significance of this prelude. I want to keep you in the dark, if one could say that the word is a form of censure to you, and get a good hearing if I can't do this, but I'll take the chance, even though it makes you laugh. I have Cicero as the source for this use word, and I consider him to be a strong authority. If you want to hear at a later time, I will reference Fabiana's mindful of the way one speaks, and so finished in a way that will work for even our pleasant preferences for what we can do. Lucilius, my beloved, how else can we discover a term for what the Greeks speak to Sawyer about something that is essential component, that is the natural foundation of everything? I implore you appropriately to let me use this. Nevertheless, I will take the word essentialia, endeavors to utilize the privilege that you have given me as little as hand as I can. Maybe I will be satisfied with the bare right, but what I would appreciate your indulgence if you see, I am unable to articulate myself in Latin the definition of the term that provided, giving me the chance to rant at our language's impoverishment, and you will denounce even our limited Roman boundaries. More after learning that there is a single-syllable term that I am unable to translate what you're asking. The term au pair is what you believe me to be. Insufficient facilities. You think that the word is prepared for delivery. That quads I could convert it, observe, but a significant change you have made me render a noun. By a verb, but I will if I have to. There are 6 ways to depict it using quads, wherein Plato articulates this concept. Our friend claims that a man of fantastic learning who brought up the fact today, and I'll go over each one with you. I'd want to start by letting you know that there is referred to as a genus and something called species for the time being. However, we are looking for the genus's main concept, which the others differ from species-dependent nature, which is the origin of every classification, is in progress. Universal principles are accepted, and the genus concept will be attained if we start to calculate back from the specifics, because we will be conducted in this manner. Returning to the main idea, Man is now a species, according to Aristotle, such as horses or dog, thus we need to find some. All of these phrases share a common bond, which holds them and envelops them below itself. And what is this? Since it is an animal, there starts to be an animal genus, which includes all of these terms, dog, horse, and man. Yet there are some items that possess life anima, but are not creatures, since it is acknowledged that trees and plants have life, which is why we talk about them as both living and dying. So there will be term live things in a still greater position, because both animals and this category includes plants. Some items, but they don't have life, such as rocks. There will be an additional phrase that comes before living things, and substance is that. I'll categorize the content by stating that everything is either animate or inanimate. However, there is still something better than content because we discuss certain topics. As having substance and specific items, as being devoid of substance, what will be the phrase that these items are derived from are derived, and it's what we recently used a derogatory name, that it occurs because they use this phrase to will be separated into species in order for us to constate that which is either has or doesn't have substance. Consequently, which genus is the main unique, and to play with the term naturally, there are additional general. Despite being general, they are unique general men. Being a genus for humans, for instance, includes species by country, Greek, Roman, etc., Parthian by hues of yellow, black, and white. The phrase includes both persons and Cato. According to Cicero Lucretia, man belongs to the category genus, as it encompasses several varieties, but insofar as it is beneath another word, it falls into the species category. However, the genus existence is universal and devoid of. It is the first phrase that is superior to it. In the grouping of items and everything, it includes items related to the Stoics. Would come before this one other genus that is even more fundamental, which I will address right now. Talk after demonstrating that the genus that possesses. As previously mentioned, it has been positioned first, since it can, encompassing everything, hence divide existing items into these things with, and things with two species lacking in substance. No third class exists, and how can I disseminate information by stating that it is either living or non-living? Additionally, how can I distribute the animated stating specific things has a mind, while others just have life? Or the concept could be stated as follows. Some things have the strength of advancements and movements of shift in posture, whilst others they are anchored in the earth, fed, and they only regrow by means of their roots. Which species do I separate animals into? They can either be bought or sold. Some Stoics were imperishable. Consider the main genera to be I'll also include the reasons why they provide evidence for what they believe in the order of nature. Certain things are present, and there are no other things. And even the things that aren't real are actually a part of the natural order, which they are will easily come to mind. Centaur's giants, for instance, and all other figments of flawed logic that have started to take on a distinct shape, although they lack physical coherence. But I now go back to the topic that I agreed to talk about with you, specifically how Plato divides everything that exists. 6 distinct ways, the first of which is, class of the existing thing cannot be captured through sight, touch, or through any sense, but it can be captured by the idea that any generic notion, like the general idea man, does not fall inside the scope of the eyes, but humans specifically do, as for Cicero. Cato, for instance, used the phrase animal to not seen. It is only understood by thinking. However, a specific animal is observed for. For instance, the second-class dog is a horse. List things that Plato claims exist is what stands out and is conspicuous. More important than everything else, he says. existing to a greater extent than the word poets are used carelessly. Since this phrase refers to anything as a verse, yet it has become popular among Greeks. To serve as the identifying characteristic of a you are aware that Homer is a single person, intended when men say the poet. So what is this supreme entity, God? Unquestionably, one who is more potent than anything else. The third class consists of those items that exist in the accurate meaning of the word. Although they are innumerable, these are located outside of our line of sight. You inquired, Plato made these pieces of furniture himself, so to talk, he refers to them as ideas, and from them everything that is visible is made and based on their design. Everything are created, they are timeless, inviolable, unalterable, and this notion, or instead, according to Plato, it is as adheres to the timeless concept. Pattern of those items that are produced by nature. I'll explain. Definition to establish the topic in a more lucid light before you, that I want to create a portrait of you, have within yourself, for a pattern of this image, where I'm thinking is given a certain outline, which is to represent in its own creations that external look, which provides me with teaching and directing this pattern. I think that imitating is a great idea. Consequently, nature has patterns in. There are an endless number of men who fish trees, whose model, all of the things that nature's creation is figured out in form, will be placed in the fourth position. If you are aware of what form, you must listen carefully. Plato, not me, is being called to answer for the challenge of the topic, but we cannot distinguish subtle differences without having trouble a bit ago. I utilized the artist as an example. When artists want to make copies, Virgil in hues, he would look at Virgil himself. The concept was Virgil's appearance, and this was the desired pattern of artwork by which the creator is inspired this concept and has made it a reality in his own. Do you want to know where the work is? There is a distinction. The former is the pattern, but the shape is the latter. Extracted from the design and represented in our artist's work is in line with the one. However, the other piece he makes is a statue with a certain outward look, that the statue's outward look is the shape, and the design itself has a certain outside look, by looking whereby the artist has created. This is the concept for his statue. If you want to make one more distinction, I'll say, indicating the artist's work contains the form concept outside of his job, and not just outside of it, but before the fifth class is composed of the items that exist in the term's typical sense. These are the initial things that must join us here. We have everything you need. As livestock, men, and other items in the sixth class includes everything that has a false existence, such as time or emptiness, anything tangible at the location, or Plato does not list touch as one of the things that, in his opinion, exist in the precise meaning of the word, these. The first thing that has to be done is, here, we'll have all of them items for them, such as men's livestock are continuously in change. Reducing or growing, none of us is the same elderly man who was in young people, or the same tomorrow as our bodies are scorched the day before. Like rushing water, everything that is seen. Time travels with the item when it is in flight. Anything that we can see, everything is fixed, including me. Comment on this modification, I've changed as well. Heraclitus simply says, we go. Down into the same river twice, but for the creek, into another river maintains its name, but the water has naturally flown past this already, is far more noticeable in rivers than in humans are still mortal beings, and we carry past in a course that was no less swift, and this makes me wonder at our insanity in cleaving with intense love to something as ephemeral as the flesh, and in concern that we might pass away one day, when every moment signifies our demise. Will you continue in your prior state, fearing that it might occur once, which actually occurs a lot for man every day. A material that falls and flows exposed to all influences save the universe, as timeless and eternal as it is dynamic and never stays the same, because even if it contains all that it has, but in a different manner, from the place where it has been, keeps rearranging itself quite effectively. You ask what I stand to gain from everything. If you want me, don't use this sophisticated reasoning. To respond to your inquiry, although like an engraver's eyes resting when they've been under stress for a long time and are exhausted and receive calls from their jobs. Then, as the expression goes, feast them, so we should take some time to reflect and revitalize them using some kind of amusement, but allow even your enjoyment as well as labor, and even from these different kinds of entertainment that you will choose if you have exercised caution. Something that could turn out to be healthy, that is a habit of mine. I attempt to extract and render Lucilius, helpful a few components from each area of, regardless of how far away it may become from the field of philosophy. What might be less likely to change now? Character, as opposed to the topics that we have been talking about, and how I can be made a better man by Plato's concepts. What lessons can I learn from them that will check on my hunger, possibly the very believed that all that serve our senses, which awaken and Plato denies, excite us a place among the actual things that exist. Such, consequently, things are fictitious, and even though they now offer a specific outward look, but they are never permanent or significant. However, we yearn for them as though they were to exist forever, or as though we are weak whenever we have them. Standing watery creatures in the middle of unrealistic expectations. Therefore, let's turn our thoughts to the things that endure. Let's gaze upon the wonderful silhouettes of everything that hovers on high, and to the God who intercedes with them and intends to protect himself from death, that which he was unable to produce imperishable due to its substance's prohibition, so by reason may be able to transcend the shortcomings of the body, for everything does not exist, since they endure forever, yet because they are safeguarded by his care, who controls everything except what was, imperishable wouldn't require a guardian, the master builder protects them. Conquering their fabric's weakness by himself, let us disgust all that is so minimally valuable item that it creates us question if it even exists. Let's simultaneously consider the fact that from its dangers, Providence delivers the actual world, which is equally mortal compared to ourselves, but to a certain degree it is possible to make petty bodies wait longer. By our own providence on earth, if only we get the capacity to manage and examine those delights, whereby the larger percentage of people Plato himself is killed, by taking pains as he ages to ensure that he was fortunate enough to have a powerful and sound body. In fact, his name was due to his large chest, yet his the sea significantly reduced strength, journeys and desperate exploits. However, by living frugally, by setting restriction on everything that arouses the desires, and by meticulous attention to detail, he attained such great age, according to himself. Despite numerous obstacles, you are aware that Plato must have had good fortune. His meticulous living allowed him to pass away, his birthday following the precise completion of, for this reason, smart folks are in his 81st year, of the East, who was in Athens by chance, sacrificed to him at the time following his death, thinking that his lifespan was excessively full for a mortal man, since he had calculated the ideal amount of, I have no doubts whatsoever, that he would have been more than prepared to give up a few days from this sum, in addition to the costs associated with living frugally one to old age, which in my opinion is not to be turned away, but it is to be desired. There is joy in being for as long as feasible in one's own firm, when a man has earned his value, relishing the query, so on which we must document our decision. Whether one should avoid extreme old age and ought to speed up the demise artificially rather than anticipating it. A man who waits languidly for his almost as cowardly as he is, fate excessively given to a wine that sinks the jar and absorbs even the leftovers. Although we'll also inquire as to whether the remains of life, or is it the purest and most transparent aspect of anything offered, just that the intellect is unhindered and the senses that are still functioning provide assistance to the body and spirit are not exhausted. Dead before it has a chance to produce a significant difference in whether a male is extending his life or causing him to die. But why would the body be useless for service? Shouldn't the striving soul be set free? Maybe one should do this a bit, prior to the due date of the obligation, lest it falls, since he might not be able to the actions and given the risk of survival. When wretchedness surpasses the risk of passing away soon, he is an idiot who, reluctant to risk a little time in hopes of winning, a few have survived the risk of enormous gain. Through very old age until passing away without impairment, and a lot of people have latent not using themselves, then how much more cruel do you think genuinely is to have lost some of your life rather than forfeiting your rights? Don't listen to me with that to end that life. Unwillingness as though my assertion were true straight to you, but consider what I must declare this. I will not desert you. Old age, if it keeps me healthy for myself and undamaged in relation to the better version of myself. But if I become older starts to break my heart, and I'm horrified its different capabilities to sections of it only gives me breath, not life. Of existence I'm going to leave a residence that is tottering and disintegrating. I will not seek death as long as possible to avoid disease. As the disease is treatable and does not obstruct my soul, I won't be violent. Hands on my body simply because I'm in. In such cases, suffering for death is a loss. But if I discover that there must always be pain, and I will leave not because it hurts, but thus it will be a barrier for me as, considering all of my motivations for living, someone who simply because he is in misery dies is cowardly and weak, but he who survives, it is foolish to only face this suffering. By I'm going on for too long, and in addition to, this place has enough material to fill a day, and how can a man take his own life if he is unable to finish a letter by saying goodbye? Reading will be more enjoyable for you than goodbye to all of my lethal discussions about death. You,